Welcome along to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. I'm Harry and I'm here to review, recap, digest the 247th Merseyside derby, which has just finished at Anfield. It's finished Everton 1, Liverpool 2, and I think it's a very difficult video to sit here and record because I think for 55 minutes of that game, the last 10 minutes of the second half, the last 10 minutes of the first half, and the pretty much the whole of the second half, I think Everton performed very well against the Liverpool side that had possibly felt like they'd already got the job done in the first half an hour of the game. Before we get into it in more detail, let's kind of take a step back and talk about the team selections and probably comments from both sides, really, where, for Everton, I think the biggest shock maybe to what we were expecting concerned the bench, where Merlin Roll apparently had picked up a knock in training yesterday, so he was unavailable for selection for the game, and that kind of left Irabunum on the bench. It meant that Mikalenko had come back from injury, starting at left back, James Garner going back into the midfield with Idrissa Gana-Gueye, into kind of an otherwise pretty familiar Everton side. I think David Moyes' first team pretty much picks itself at the moment. Tyler Dibbling still having to be patient for his minutes this season. Same with Carlos Alcaraz. Jared Branthwaite still not in the squad despite getting nearer to being available for match day selection. And really the question marks and the conversation were coming more from the other side of Stanley Park, really, with Liverpool. Alexander Isak on the bench, Florian Wirtz on the bench, Jeremy Frimpong on the bench also, and Andy Robertson on the bench, and it looked on paper like a Liverpool side that maybe there was rotation, there was rest, there was fatigue, and it's something maybe Everton could exploit a little bit. But unfortunately the first half, and we'll probably skim through this quickly because I want to try and salvage some positives from the second half, but the first half very much was Liverpool to the half-hour mark, really. They started strong. They really struggled, Everton, to get a foothold in the game. Possession was very fleeting. Liverpool dominated the ball. They were good kind of keeping it at the back. They were good going forward with it. I think they caused Everton not a lot of problems in terms of chance creation, because actually I don't think there was too many clear-cut chances from either side in this game that didn't find the back of the net. But I think they were definitely the more comfortable on the ball, and flip that and converse that with Everton, who in the first half, in the rare moments they did try and find Jack Grealish, he wasn't finding much joy up against Connor Bradley. I think every time they did try and go long to Beto, it was a bit of a thankless task for Beto. First half, very much a case of fleeting moments for Everton, not being able to kind of capitalise on those when they came. We find ourselves probably around the 32-minute mark, 2-0 down. Goals there from Ekitike for the second one. I think the second goal for me was a bit easy. The first goal was a bit of a wonder goal, really. You'd argue whether anyone can do better from an Everton perspective. It's kind of sloppy, trying to get the ball down in possession, but it breaks to Gravenberch. He takes it well. It's over Pickford. I think it's just, we write that one off as a fairly decent goal. The Ekitike one was sort of strolling through defenders and midfielders like no one was there. And that was very much kind of Everton in the first half. They just lacked a little bit of like oomph and energy and organisation. But after that, it felt like Liverpool naturally dropped. They were trying to kind of hold on and defend a 2-0 lead, and Everton really started to find more pockets of space. They found a little bit more energy, maybe playing a little bit without pressure, because at that point it sort of looks like game done. And heading into half time, you'd say Everton sort of had 5-10 minutes at the end of that first half that were relatively strong. And then David Moyes makes a bit of a bold statement at half time. He swaps Beto for Barry, and I know there'll be many in the comments here today and on social media that will say that's the right change, and it absolutely was from the gameplay perspective. I think Beto has really looked uncomfortable in that first half. He's looked uncomfortable at times this season in other games, and Barry kind of came in and did what we've talked a lot about on this channel, on the podcast, about the differences between the two forwards. Barry does a lot off the ball. He allows others to kind of play through him while still remaining to be a bit of a handful and a bit of an unknown entity for Premier League defences. Beto's game seems kind of very easy to read, but I would also say you're going to have to put some of that first half performance on David Moyes, because I think the long ball approach at Anfield, it wasn't working. I don't think it's ever really worked for Beto. I don't think it's ever really worked for Everton in this modern era. So I'd put a little bit of Beto's performance today down on the tactical approach of that first half, if I'm being very honest, not to make too many excuses for him. And I think Barry's second half performance for me now would warrant a bit of a run in the side. I think I'm saying what many would probably agree with, really. I don't think it's controversial to say that. I would be expecting Barry to start against Wolves in the Cup. I would be expecting him to kind of start against West Ham at the weekend, depending on how that Cup game goes. And yeah, before we get into that, let's talk about the second half. Really, kind of aside from the first couple of minutes where Everton once again were sort of struggling to find their feet, I think after that, I'd struggle to remember, aside from a couple of counter-attacks, moments where Liverpool caused us many problems. There was a great block in the second half from a corner by Jack Grealish. He kind of denied Konate, but other than that, Everton, I think, really took the game to Liverpool in the second half. Their goal was fantastic. Grealish with the cross, and Dye closed it down and controlled it brilliantly, laid it off. Garner took that chance well. I know he maybe had a couple of other passes and shots in the game, less good than that, but he took his chance well. I think everyone was kind of surprised that that was the goal scorer, but a great goal from Garner. And aside from that, very good in spells in that second half. Everton playing without pressure, really at 2-1, trying to take it, just maybe lacking that final pass, that cutting edge. You kind of saw Szoboszlai and Bradley doubling up on Grealish. It really showed, I think, with Everton that whilst we have got creative outlets across that line behind the striker now, Grealish is the most significant. And if you isolate Grealish, Everton do look maybe almost as toothless as we looked at times last season. So, you know, they played a smart game in marking Grealish, but I thought Grealish had another fantastic game. I saw commenting on the game for the Toffee Blues over on X that a lot of kind of criticism for Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall, saying it maybe wasn't his day today, wasn't his best game in an Everton shirt. I think he had another very solid performance. I think he handled things well. I think he and Grealish clearly have a very good connection on the pitch. I think Grealish and Mykolenko developed a pretty good connection on the pitch as well as the game built. So I would say, despite it being a very disappointing first half performance, despite the fact we're sitting here again talking about another Merseyside derby defeat, I think there's still a great room for positivity out of this game. I think there are signs here that Everton, despite kind of allowing themselves to go 2-0 down against your fiercest rivals, showed fight, showed spirit, showed that they don't just roll over, showed that we won't just kind of be dominated in a game, give as good as we get with what we've got. And I'm optimistic. I think we'll respond well in the cup game in midweek. I expect him to make a few changes, David Moyes. As I said, I do expect Barry to kind of get a bit of a run in the team now as well. And shout out again to Michael Keane. It sort of went under the radar in this one because Liverpool scored 2 goals rather, and but I thought in spells Michael Keane was solid. I thought James Tarkowski looked kind of back to his best in this one today as well, despite kind of both of them not really being there for the second goal. I thought Tarkowski made some fantastic challenges to sort of deny Liverpool getting on the score sheet later on in the game, particularly when Everton were attacking, looking for that equaliser. I think Tarkowski was covering for Mykolenko really well. And I think there were some really notable performances. I think Barry promising, Grealish good again, Tarkowski sort of recovering some of the form we saw from last season, and Michael Keane proving that there's going to be some selection headaches when Jared Branthwaite is fit. So aside from that, then, let us know your thoughts. I'm sure it's quite raw right now. It's never a fun few days after a Merseyside derby defeat, but do let us know in the comments below, and do make sure you like, subscribe and follow us on social media. This is the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. I'm Harry Colley, and I'll see you again very soon. Up the Toffees.